Hello and welcome to another episode of Guess That Record. I am your host, Jackson Reed. This is the show where we talk about music and try to figure out which album I pulled from my collection. Thanks again to you, the listeners, for tuning in to another episode. Your support is always appreciated. Our guest is a guitarist, producer, and one of the members of Roxy Music. The band achieved success with hits like Love is the Drug, Jealous Guy, More Than This, and they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2019. Outside of Roxy Music, our guest has worked with many artists, most notably David Gilmour and Pink Floyd. I'm super excited to be speaking today with Phil Manzanera. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm doing very well. The sun is shining here in London. It's a bit chilly, but all's good. And I'm here in my upstairs in my recording studio. The main control room's downstairs. This is like the room where you work out things.
Excellent. It's so cool to be speaking with you today because, well, first off, I'm a guitar player, so I always love having fellow guitar players on the show. And, just such an amazing career with a lot of amazing songs and albums that you've been a part of. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with you.
Funny enough, I don't normally have guitars up here. Today, I happen to have my 51 Telecaster.
Ooh, nice.
And that's being used on a lot of Roxy Music tracks. Yeah.
Cool. Is it, I while we're talking about guitars here, I got to ask, because I've seen you use a Les Paul a lot. Is that kind of your go-to style of guitar, or?
My my signature guitar is a red Firebird 7, 1964. But I have used the Black Beauty, a 57, which I borrowed for years, and the 51 Telecaster and the Firebird on pretty much all the records I've done. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, the funny thing about yourself is that I've been familiar with you for quite a long time, just through, all the records you've been a part of. But the weird thing is, I didn't really make the connection for a long time that you were a part of Roxy Music. So it was kind of funny once I put the dots together, and it was like, oh, Phil's in Roxy Music. But I wanted to start off by asking you about a few songs from this record here, Avalon. And specifically the opening track, More Than This, which I learned how to play it on guitar because I think it's just like, it's such a cool song, like, just like a wave of sound coming over you. But the interesting thing is that it's not necessarily the most complicated song to play. So how did that come together?
Well, funny enough, that riff that starts the thing is done on this.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. And that actually, funny enough, I didn't really. I was tuning up, and the guy who's the co-producer with us, Rhett Davis, said we were looking for a riff to start the song. He said, "Well, that's it." I said, "No, I'm just tuning up." He said, "No, that's the one."
Yeah,
and that's how that happened. It's like so simple. It's just 3 notes, but what's great is that as the chords change underneath it still works. So the counter thing, and it's a little motif, as they call it, which goes through the whole thing. So, just fortunate. Yeah, I mean, that particular song, More Than This, seems to have had a lot of resonance, especially in North America and Canada and stuff, more so than in the UK, really. But it's a very simple lyric about profound stuff. And, by this stage in the Roxy canon, Brian was writing almost like haikus, little distilled lyrics, whereas in the early days, it's very flowery, lots of names thrown in and stuff like that. And it's more like chilled, which sort of suited that time at the beginning of the 80s,
For sure. Yeah. And another song I wanted to ask you about from that record was Take a Chance with Me, which was one that you co wrote. And I think another really cool guitar song. Did you kind of like have the music for that one put together first
Yeah,
and then brought it to the band?
that's right. I did a demo with the whole of the intro and stuff like that. Then it going into the next section where it would be possible to write a top line to it. And yeah, I had pretty much it all done, and then it was just a question of getting good sounds to get it going, and then for Brian to try and like he did with pretty much all the songs from the second album onwards, try and write a top line on top of all the music already recorded.
Hmm.
It's a different way of working. For most normal songwriters who are proper songwriters can write a song like that. As it turned out, it seemed like we couldn't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of like the main riff you hear throughout the song, that da 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 da. Which guitar did you use to get that? Because it's got kind of a jangly sort of sound to it.
Oh yeah, it's a Rickenbacker 12 string. Yeah,
Oh, nice, nice. I love those guitars. So
yeah,
that's
it's a
cool.
lovely guitar. I always, I because of the Beatles and George Harrison having that in A Hard Day's Night way back. I always wanted one, and I love the Birds. Roger
Hmm.
Quinn. So it's just quite difficult to play actually 12 string because the strings are very close together on the neck.
Hmm.
It's great for like jangly stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'm the same way. I love those bands that use those Rickenbackers, and I was kind of having trouble finding one myself, so I ended up getting like a Japanese copy Rickenbacker.
There is a
But
very good one actually. Somebody the other day told me about. In fact, he had one at the back when I was talking to him on the Zoom. I said, "What the hell's that?" And I think I wrote it down somewhere, but it's not like it's expensive as a Rickenbacker. It seems to be a great guitar.
yeah, yeah, no, there are options out there if you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
for
yeah.
one. So this episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Marvel Marketing. Marvel Marketing is an award winning digital marketing company headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, working with clients in different industries from all over North America, including Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Marvel Marketing services include website design and development, website maintenance, search engine optimization, public relations services, and social media management, amongst others. To find out more, visit marvelmarketing.ca. This episode of Guess That Record is sponsored by Guitarworks. One of Canada's top independent music stores for over 30 years, Guitarworks carries a huge selection of musical instruments from the biggest brands in music, including Gibson, Fender, Martin, Yamaha, and Paul Reed Smith. Visit any of their two Calgary locations or shop online at guitarworks.ca and join the Guitar Perks program to earn money back with every purchase. Guitarworks, your total guitar store. This episode of Guess That Record is also sponsored by Recordland, home to the largest selection of music in Canada. Buy, sell, and trade tapes, CDs, and vinyl. Located in Calgary's Inglewood neighborhood on 9th Avenue Southeast, visit them in person or on Instagram at Recordland Calgary. Yeah. And so when I alluded earlier to being familiar with you outside of Roxy Music, I was, of course, talking about your work with David Gilmour and Pink Floyd.
Yeah,
I'm a huge, huge fan, especially of David as a guitarist, of course.
of course.
And I understand you and him go way back. Is that correct?
That's right. Let's see. I think I was 16 in January 1967 when my father had died in South America, and we were back in England, and my mother was a Colombian lady from Barranquilla, the coast of Colombia. And I said, "Look, I really want to be a pop musician, rock musician, whatever." She had no idea what that was. And my brother said, "Okay." My brother had been up at Cambridge University, and he said, "I know this guy, and this week he has joined a band as a professional musician. Let's go and talk to him to see what you have to do to be a professional musician. And that guy was David Gilmour. And he just literally that week joined Pink Floyd as a full member. And he can't remember what he said to me, but he said it must have been good because 5 years later you managed to get into Roxy Music. So, and we've stayed in touch ever since then, since 1967, and he's my next door neighbor in the country.
Right.
I say, it goes back a long way. So yeah, I spent basically 10 years between 2005 and 2015 working on his albums, the Pink Floyd album, doing some tours. We came to Canada, yes, several times on both tours. And that was great fun.
Yeah, for sure. And so, you of course got to write. You co-wrote the song "One Slip" off of Pink Floyd's "Momentary Lapse of Reason," but then it was quite a few years later, and then you get the call to work on this record here, "On an Island."
Yeah.
How did that opportunity present itself?
Well, as I said, I'm his next door neighbor.
Yeah.
So we were around there for, I think actually to start with, I'd done a solo album and asked him if he'd come and play on it called 6 p.m. That's right. And so I went up to his little studio and we played and stuff. And then over dinner one night, he said, "Do you fancy, I think I'm going to do another album. I haven't done one for I don't know, 10 years or 15.
I think it was longer. Yeah.
Longer, 15. I said, well, you obviously don't need a proper producer, but I could be an extra ears to sort of just say sometimes you need, is this any good or not?" And then he said he had 10 years worth of little ideas. Could I listen to them all? And see if any. So I would pick one bit, stick it together with another bit, and come up to my studio, do a little demo, and go back to see him. He would say, "What's this?" "That's just you. That's what because he had so many little bits and pieces, he couldn't remember half.
Yeah.
I said, "This is piece number 134 stuck onto piece number 32, and then it goes out on piece 91.
Yeah.
So some of those, funny enough, some of those demo things have been used not only on that album, but on Rattle That Lock, and even on the latest one.
Right.
Which I didn't produce or do anything. But actually, one of those things is it one or two? I think definitely one, but it might be not. So
it's there. Yeah.
It's there, yeah.
And I wanted to ask about the title track of "On an Island," because I think that's such an atmospheric song, and of course it's got great background vocals with David Crosby and Graham Nash on it. So, what was it like putting that song together?
I'm just casting my mind back because a lot of things have happened since. It was a joy. It's a very kind of, we were considering what kind of album he should do. And this sort of gentle side of David came to the fore. And the kind of chords sequence are very major seventh type. And, they lend themselves to a lot of harmonies and stuff. And luckily, he was in touch with Cros and Graham. And so they were the perfect people to blend with his voice, which, from a harmony point of view, is just beautiful. And you can hear it all over that. And then, of course, they came on tour for a bit as well. It was an absolute joy to have them there, just such legends,
For sure.
Yeah.
And playing that song live, specifically, you mentioned playing live. It's cool because if you go on YouTube and watch the footage of playing that song in particular, you and Dave are sort of trading licks back and forth. That's got to be a real thrill to be up on a big stage with David Gilmour, having a little guitar duel like that.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. that was a lot of fun. Yeah, and especially because that obviously I didn't play on the Pink Floyd stuff, so um, so I had to learn his other parts. But something like that was had much more resonance for me.
Hmm.
I've been involved in the creation of it, seen the birth of it, and then carried it right through. And then for the live album, we recorded every concert. I had to go through every single version of it and choose which one was going to go on the live album and things like that. So I definitely heard a lot of versions.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then Rattle That Lock, the follow-up album. The title track I think is really interesting because it almost kind of feels like a pop song in a way. Like it's very to the point, but at the same time, it's got a lot of complexity to it. There's like a full choir on it, and there's like the French train station
Oh yes,
announcement sample in there. How did you kind of combine all those elements into a very succinct track?
well, that's just a bit of great fun, really. When you've got all the different elements on a palette of colors, if you like. If you say that instead of the colors, they're different sounds and different textures, and you're sort of trying to paint a picture and trying to create something beautiful out of it. And so you work away on all this stuff, and until he's happy because it's his album, and you do your best to actually refine everything, and then just you have to be patient and recognize that you're heading in the right direction, but it's a lot of work.
For sure, for sure. And just to like kind of end off with Dave here, but like I one thing I've kind of been impressed about with his recent solo album, so those two and his newest
Yeah.
one, which came out last year, is I feel like he's almost singing better nowadays than he was even back with Pink Floyd. Like a lot of the Floyd songs, he's singing kind of in a mid-range vocal, whereas on these records, like Rattle That Lock today, like he's really singing some high notes on there. So like did you as the producer did you suggest to him like, hey, you can do some cool stuff with the vocals here?
No, I didn't, because he knows he can. He's got a beautiful voice. I love his voice, and he's one of his unique things about his voice is his ability to sing high sweetly, but when he wants to give it a little bit of distortion, he can give it a bit of raw
Hmm.
as well. So that's part of encourage. One is encouraging him to fulfill his potential. And of course, if there's something where it's obviously not working, then you say, well, maybe that's not working. He's very good at self-editing that kind of and preparing.
For
As I
sure.
said, he doesn't really need a producer, but a producer's there to really, because there's so many things to do when making a record. You wouldn't want to have to do all that stuff as well as singing and performing. And obviously Polly has written most of the words, but there are a couple of songs on each thing where he has actually done words. So there's a lot of work involved, but he's a good workman type person.
Yeah, yeah, for
You
sure.
can see live, that he does a lot.
Hmm.
Sings, he plays guitar, he's tweaking his sound all the time.
Yeah.
It's like amazing, actually.
Hmm. For sure.
Yeah,
And then, to kind of move into the present,
yeah.
you've got a new album out now, which is called PM SOHO Live, which of course is a collaboration with Andy McKay from Roxy Music. So
And Paul Thompson, the drummer from Roxy Music.
for sure. And so this record in particular, this is kind of a companion piece to your previous album. Is that correct?
Well, it is, but I was talking to Andy this morning. We were having a listen to it, the vinyl version, and it's really brought to life the tracks that were on the original AM/PM album a few years before. And through the approach that we've used to playing live, has brought out something special in us, and we were trying to work out why this works, and it's probably because we've played together for like 52 years. In fact, all of the three of us. So there's a certain amount of intuitiveness, because like 80% of this was improvised at the gig. And what we've learned, and it's not jazz, that's the thing. So it's about sound textures, and a space, leaving space and listening to each other. And it's uncanny how and fortuitous that it turned out the way it did, because there's no rehearsals for it.
Right.
So, and we did 3 nights, so it's chosen from the 3 different nights, but each night was different. So it was like recording a new album, but in a live setting with a small audience there, 75 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I call it Avant rock. And when I first answered an ad to join Roxy Music, and there was an ad saying guitarists wanted in a Melody Maker in 1971, I think, November, around there. It said guitarists wanted for Avant rock group. And I had forgotten totally about that. And that was the original mission statement of Roxy Music, to be an Avant rock group, not an Avant rock group. I know it sounds pedantic, but there's the Avant bit, which you're trying to do interesting, different, not avant-garde music, but different music. And the rock bit is like, has a rock bass to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Thompson is like, whose favorite drummer of all time is John Bonham. And the Avant side comes from me and Andy, different kinds of influences and stuff. But you've got this guy who rocks underneath, or will keep the whole thing together. And it's our idea of still, which we're all doing actually, including Eno with his new album BT Wolf, and Brian Ferry with his new album with Amelia Barrett, is trying to do interesting music and present it in an attractive fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the definition of Roxy, and we're all individually still trying to do that in different ways, and not chasing chart single success or anything like that. We're just exploring music.
For sure, for sure. And it was interesting because I could almost kind of sense, like, almost like a electronic dance music kind of sound to this record. Like
Yeah,
it feels very modern,
it does.
which
Yeah.
you don't, like, I think for the artists of your generation, it might be comfortable to like keep doing what made you successful. But I think like it's good to see you guys trying something totally different like this.
It's challenge and there's jeopardy to it. But I've always thought that whenever you go play live, especially, it's good to have a bit of jeopardy, because live things can go horribly wrong or horribly right. Not horribly right, brilliantly right. So it puts you on your toes, and you have to listen and just be in the moment, but
It
be aware that you're somehow exploring, looking for something new.
Yeah,
Live.
for sure. It's I would love to actually talk, like, speaking to sort of the electronic nature of the performance and what you guys did on this. Um what was the process like of recording all of that? Because of course it's a little, it's different than, miking up live instruments in a way. So what was the production process like of putting
Well,
this record
it's
together?
not that complicated, really, because if you're going to go through a PA, you've got to get your source sound into the mixing desk. So remembering that the guy mixing is part of the band, Mike Boddy, and he also is not part of the band in the sense of he has an Appleton thing that he can contribute to the sound. He can also, we were in a space that had 7.1 surround sound system, so he could fly things around the room and also experiment with what we were doing, but all individually going into channels in a mixing desk out the front, which
Right.
he then controlled. But then he recorded all that onto Pro Tools, and then later, obviously, we remixed.
Yeah, for sure. And are there any more plans to do more shows with this group here, or are you sort of moving on to the next thing after this record?
No, I mean, I'm trying to investigate the possibilities of it, especially in America and Canada and stuff. But there's 7 people involved. The whole economics of touring is difficult unless you're obviously, you've seen it. A farewell tour with Roxy, relatively easy because of big venues. The tickets are expensive. You can fund all the screens and all that kind of stuff. When you're on a small scale, like we're back to small scale, it's not always possible. So, but I have an agent guy in Boston, Jack, who's looking into possibilities, see if we can get over there next year to maybe do 10 dates with the same lineup, because I think people will like it.
Yeah. And we would love to see that. I have to say thank you, Phil, for coming on the podcast today. It was amazing to speak with you. And where can the listeners check out the new record and check out what you're doing?
Well, you can go to Spotify if you don't, or you can buy the vinyl or the Dolby Atmos version, which is tremendously immersive and wonderful, from manzanera.com. Or I think you can buy it on Amazon, I think. Yeah. But I mean, through my website, you can go to the shop where we've signed them and things like that.
For sure. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Guess That Record. Make sure to leave a 5-star review wherever you listen and tell your friends to check us out. I want to shout out our radio partners currently airing Guess That Record as a syndicated show: CKMS in Kitchener, Ontario, CKXU in Lethbridge, Alberta, and South Devon Sound in Kingsbridge, UK. So if you're in those markets, be sure to check those stations out to hear the show. If you're with a radio station and you'd be interested in adding Guess That Record to your programming, send us an email to guessthatrecordpodcast@gmail.com. We'd also appreciate it if you follow us on Instagram and TikTok, where our username on both platforms is @GuessThatRecord. And lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the video versions of these amazing interviews. Remember to keep rocking, and we'll see you on the next episode of Guess That Record.